The morning air in Brad was crisp and alive with the scent of pine and mud. Wine struggled out of the tent, shivering in rough tunic Jungkook had given her. Her body ached in ways she hadn't expected soreness from yesterday's adrenaline, but also the strange weight of anticipation. Jungkook stood nearby, surveying the camp with his usual intensity, his black coat swirled around him as he moved, every gesture commanding attention, every glance sharp enough to cut through steel. He caught her eye briefly and gave the faintest lift of a bow, a silent reminder that she was under his watchful control. She clenched her fist. I'm not his prisoner, she told herself. I'm just a guest and I will find a way out. Follow me, he said abruptly, striding toward the edge of the camp. We leave for the village today. Keep up. Yes, sir, she muttered, her voice low. She bit back a retort for now. The forest outside the camp was alive with birdsong and a distant chatter of streams. Vine couldn't help marveling at the beauty even as her heart raced with fear. She was still a stranger there, still a target by default simply because she existed in this world. Stay close, he warned, voice low. The woods are not safe. I have been tracking rebels along this route for weeks. They nothing. She flinched at his nearness, a brush of his sleeve against hers as he moved. Right, of course, safe, got it. He glanced at her, eyes sharp. You are not fragile as you look, but this world isn't forgiving to hesitancy. Hesitate and you die. I am good at hesitating, she muttered. Jungkook's lips twitched, a dangerous half smile. I like that about you. You resist, most would cover. Her stomach fluttered despite herself. She wanted to glare, to push away the heart that rose to her cheeks, but she couldn't. There was a magnetic pull in his presence, a danger she could feel in her bones, and it terrified her as they walked. Jungkook rifled her on the area, the nearby villages, and the political tensions that made the forest so dangerous. Vine listened, nodding where necessary, though her mind kept drifting to him, the way his eyes caught the morning light, the curve of his mouth when he thought. She wasn't looking, the faint scent of leather and rain that clung to him. Do you always look this commanding? She asked suddenly, unable to stop herself. Jungkook's gaze flickered to her, eyes narrowing. Commanding? I don't think I care for your tone. Your tone, she shot back, is terrifying and flattering all at once. How do you manage that? He stopped walking, turning to her fully. Flattering? His lips twitched into a grin that made her chest tighten. I don't do flattering, I do necessary. Necessary, she echoed, her pulse quickening. Exactly. He stepped closer, reducing the space between them just enough space to make her pulse race. And right now, it's necessary that you stay close. She swallowed. I can't stay close without feeling like my heart is going to explode. His eyes flicked down briefly, then back to her, sharp and intent. That would be difficult. The forest was alive, but not with the life that welcomed them. Birds scattered at their approach, and the distant rustle of leaves suggested more than just wind. Vines pulsed gemmed with every shadow that moved among the trees. Jungkook moved ahead, silent and alert, every step purposeful. He glanced back at her occasionally, sharp grey eyes assessing. Stay close, he murmured again. I am close, she replied, though she wasn't sure if she meant it physically or emotionally. Every time she caught his glance, her chest thumped with an unfamiliar rhythm, and her hands itched to reach out, rose at his presence. You are tense, he said softly, stepping beside her. Do you always look like this when frightened? I don't look frightened, she insisted, though her knees betrayed her, shaking slightly. Her eyes flicked down at her lips, then back to her gaze. It's interesting. Interesting? She echoed, a mix of confusion and exasperation coloring her voice. Yes, he said simply, his tone low, almost intimate. The way you resist, the way you argue, the way your pulse betray you, fascinating. Vine's cheeks frowned. I'm not fascinating. I'm trying not to die. He chuckled, a deep, dangerous sound that made her heart stutter. You are adorable when you pretend to be fierce. She wanted to glare, she wanted to show him, but instead she felt a jolt in her chest. She didn't understand. He was dangerous, the villain from her book, and yet here he was, standing so close, the heat of him enveloping her. Suddenly, the underbrush to their right rustled violently. Jungkook's hand went to the hilt of his sword, and in a fluid motion he stepped in front of her, positioning himself between Vine and the approaching threat. Vine's heart raced. She wanted to run, but Jungkook's hand brushed lightly against her arm. A grounding, almost intimate touch. She froze, feeling both terrified and alive. A group of armed rebels burst from the trees, swords drawn. Jungkook's gaze sharpened, and he moved with leather precision. Arrows zipped past, clashing against shields. One of the men lunged at Vine, and Jungkook reacted instantly, sweeping her out of the way and slamming his sword into the attacker with brutal efficiency. Jungkook? She cried, hard in her thought. He looked back at her, grey eyes fierce. Stay down, move only when I say so. She crouched behind a fallen tree, trembling, adrenaline coursing through her veins. He fought with a grace and power that made her chest ache in ways she couldn't explain. Every move he made was a reminder that he was the villain, the enemy, the man he had sworn to hate. And yet every motion also drew her in, stirred something impossible inside her. The rebels were driven back, retreating into the forest with shouts and curses. Jungkook wiped his blade clean, then stooped toward her. Rain dripping from his hair got plastered into his body. You are unharmed? He asked, tone softer than before. I'm fine, she said quickly, though her hand still shook. He studied her closely, his gaze lingering on her wet hair, the flushed skin at her neck, the way her chest rose and fell. You are more resilient than I imagined, he murmured. I'm just lucky, she muttered, though she couldn't hide the way her pulse raced. Jungkook stepped closer, the space between them shrinking. She could feel his heat, smell the faint scent of leather and rain, feel the magnetic pull of his presence. Lucky can only carry you so far, he said, voice low and dangerous, her breath caught. And what happens when it runs out? His lips curled faintly. Then I will protect you. Vine's heart leapt. She wanted to step back to remind herself of the danger, the villain, the enemy she had been reading about, but she didn't. She felt the pull of his nearness, the tension vibrating in the space between them. You are infuriating, she whispered. Good, he said softly, the edge in his voice gone for a fraction of a second, replaced by something warmer. It keeps you alive, and it keeps me interested. The words hit her like fire. She wanted to respond, to argue, to deny that he thought made her chest tighten in ways she didn't understand. But before she could, Jungkook reached out, brushing a damp strand of hair from her face. The contract lingered just long enough to make her shiver. Stay close, he murmured, stepping back and sheathing the sword. I can't protect you if you wander off. Vine nodded, swallowing hard. Every instinct screamed to fight him, to run, to hate. Yet beneath it all, she felt a thrill, the intoxicating pull of danger, desire, and the unknown. And as they continued through the forest side by side, she realized something terrifyingly true. Surviving Wrath wouldn't just be about avoiding death. It would be about navigating the magnetic, impossible, and undeniably dangerous tension between herself and John Jungkook. By mid-afternoon, the forest opened into a narrow valley. Mist clung to the ground, curling around gnarled roots and rocks like restless ghosts. Vine's leg ached, but she kept her pace beside Jungkook, whose movements remained fluid, assured, and entirely magnetic. This place doesn't feel safe, she muttered, scanning the shadows. Jungkook's eyes narrowed. It isn't, you will notice that soon enough. Before she could ask what he meant, a sharp crack echoed from above. Wine's head snapped upward, branches snapped, and arrows flew from the treetops. Jungkook reacted instantly, pulling her down behind a boulder. The arrow whistle passed by her ear. What now? She gasped. Ambush, Jungkook said tersely, scanning the surrounding trees. Stay close and do exactly as I say. She nodded, heart racing, as he moved with predatory grace, deflecting arrows, striking silently at the hidden attackers, each motion precise, deadly. Vine watched mesmerized, her pulse jangled with fear, admiration, and something far more complicated. Jungkook, she whispered, you are incredible. He glanced at her briefly, grey eyes catching hers, a flash of something softer breaking through the usual hard intensity. Focus, he said, though the edge of his smile tugged at his lips. A sudden movement in the mist caught Vine's eyes, a figure darting toward her flank. She froze, and Jungkook was instantly there, sweeping her out of the way. The heat of his body pressed against hers, and she felt the breathless, heart-stopping closeness again. You have to trust me, he murmured, voice low and intimate. I do trust you, she whispered, though the part of her mind screamed, he is the villain, he could kill you. He didn't speak again, just moved with her pressed against him, dodging attacks and returning them with lethal precision. Every brush of his arm against her sent shivers down her spine. She hated the effect he had on her, hated that she was simultaneously terrified and drawn to him. Finally, the attackers retreated, melting back into the misty forest. Vine collapsed against a tree, chest heaving, hand shaking. Jungkook crouched beside her, hand resting lightly on her shoulder, steadying her. You are alive, he said quietly, grey eyes fixed on her. That's what matters. She struggled for words. Her mind was a whirlwind of fear, exhilaration, and emotion she couldn't name. You save me again. His gaze softened imperceptibly. I will protect you, no matter what happens. Her pulse raced. She wanted to step away, to remind herself he was dangerous, he was her enemy, and yet she didn't. Instead, she felt the pull of his nearness, an unspoken electricity of their connection. You are impossible, Jungkook, she whispered. I prefer challenging, he murmured, the faintest smirk tugging at his lips. His hand lingered on hers for a heartbeat longer than necessary, sending warmth through her chest. The moment shattered as movement in the mist announced a launch scout approaching. Jungkook immediately shifted into protective mode, his body moving between her and the figure, tension radiating off him like heat. Vine felt a pang of admiration and something deeper unspoken. This world, she whispered after the scout fled, is terrifying as it looked in the book. Jungkook's hand brushed her damp hair away from her face again. Yes, but with me, you might survive. She looked into his eyes, grey and stormy, and her chest tightened with an emotion she couldn't name. Hate? No. Fear? Partially. Desire? Undeniably. You are different than I imagined, she admitted softly, and you are not what I expected either, he said, stepping closer, the heat between them undeniable. Little intruder, you challenged me in ways I didn't think possible. His lips parted slightly, her heartbeat thudded erratically. She wanted to pull away, to remind herself of her reality, the world she had come from, the villain she should hate, but every instinct betrayed her. Jungkook tilted his head, studying her, his voice dropping to a near whisper. Do you feel it too? Vine's breath hitched. What? The pull between us, he said, the word us hanging heavy in the mist. The danger, the fire, the tracks tightened. She couldn't finish, couldn't rationalize it, couldn't run. She only knew she wanted to understand it. The tension, the danger, the magnetic force of the man who was both her enemy and the only one who could keep her alive. He reached out again, fingertips brushing her jaw with deliberate care. I don't let anyone close, he murmured, but I want to know you, if you let me. Her breath caught. The rain-damp forest, the adrenaline, the raw proximity of him. It was intoxicating, terrifying, impossible. Vine realized something that made her heart thunder in her chest. She was falling or already had fallen for John Chenko, and in wrath, falling for the enemy was the most dangerous thing of all. The valley was shrouded in mist, each breath Vine drew tasting of damp earth and danger. Her heart still raced from the ambush earlier, but the tension wasn't just from fear, it was from Jungkook. The way he moved, the way he watched her, the way he protected her, with a ferocity that made her pulse spike in ways she hadn't expected. They had been walking for hours, navigating the forest trails. Jungkook knew like he had his back of his hand. The sun dipped low, painting long shadows across the twisted roads and rocky paths. Vine's muscles ached, and yet her attention was glued to him. She couldn't ignore the way his presence dominated every space around her, the way his eyes lingered when he thought she wasn't looking. Shenku, she said, trying to mask the tremor in her voice. How much further is the village? He didn't answer immediately. His gaze was locked on something in the distance. His jaw tightened. Then he exhaled and looked at her. Not far, but there may be others waiting. We have to stay sharp. I am sharp, she replied. Though the truth was her nerves were fraying, but I don't think I have ever felt this on edge. Jungkook's lips curved faintly. You are learning. They moved in silence for a while. The only sounds, the crunch of leaves underfoot, and distant calls of unseen creatures. Vine's mind drifted, thinking back to the previous days, the ambush, the forest, the way he had saved her over and over. She had spent all these hours hating him, fearing him, resisting him, and yet here she was walking beside him, feeling drawn to his orbit in ways she couldn't rationalize. A sudden snap of a twig behind them made her spun. Sword half raised, but Jungkook's hand shot out, steadying her, brushing her against her wrist. The touch was brief, electric, and she felt a jolt run through her. Focus, he murmured, his voice low and intimate. She blinked at him, unable to speak, her chest tightened in a way that made her dizzy. He noticed her hesitation, his grey eyes darkening. You are distracted, he said softly. Danger and distraction do not mix in my world. I am fine, she whispered, though her throat had gone dry. Good, he said, though his tone carried the faintest edge of something she couldn't name. Possessiveness, concern, desire. The forest opened into a clearing and they passed the village just beyond. Quiet now, smoke curling from chimneys in the fading sunlight. Vine's relief was short-lived. The tension in the air was palpable. Jungkook crouched slightly, scanning the edges of the village, hand brushing against his sword. They are expecting trouble, he said. Stay close. Vine moved instinctively closer, her shoulder brushing his. He didn't pull away, instead his presence enveloped her, protective and commanding. She could feel the heat of him, the faint brush of rain down her hair against her cheek, the steady rhythm of his breath. Her mind screamed at her to resist, to remember he was the villain she had been reading about, the enemy she had been taught to hate, and yet every instinct betrayed her. Jungkook turned toward her, eyes sharp. Look at me. She lifted her gaze and their eyes locked. The forest seemed to fade, the village beyond becoming irrelevant. It was just drum and the electricity that hung between them. You are thinking too much, he said, voice low with almost a whisper. I am not, she stammered, though the truth was painfully clear in her racing heart. He stepped closer, closing the space between them. Vine's breath hitched, the tension coiling in her chest. His fingers brushed against her arm, lingering slightly, and she felt a warmth that made her knees weak. Why? He murmured, his grey eyes holding hers with an intensity that left her stunned. Stop fighting what's here. Before she could respond, before she could even process what he meant, he leaned in, his lips brushed against his, a light testing kiss that sent fire shooting through her veins. She froze, heart hammering, and then realized with a jolt she wanted this, she needed this. Her arms went around his neck almost instinctively, the world narrowing to the height of him, the brush of his lips, the undeniable pull between them. All her resistance, all her hesitation melted in the tension of the moment. Shenko, she whispered, breathless. The words caught in her throat. She had finally realized the truth she had been denying. She had feelings for him, real, undeniable, complicated feelings. He deepened the kiss slightly, holding her as if he would never let her go, and for a brief, perfect moment, Vine felt entirely, completely alive. And then everything changed, a sharp tug at her chest, like the world itself was pulling her apart. Vine gasped, tumbling back. The ground seemed to vanish beneath her, the forest, the village, Jenguk, all of it dissolved into a white, swirling light. Jungkook, she cried, reaching for him. His face blurred, his lips disappeared, and the world tilted violently. Vine blinked against the harsh white light. Her room, her familiar, safe, mundane room stretched out around her as if nothing had happened. The rain from Wraith was gone, the forest, the village, the adrenaline, the kisses all gone. She sat up, heart pounding, pulse racing as though she had been running for her life. Her fingers brushed her lips, still tingling from the memory of him. It was real, she whispered to herself. Her room was silent. The familiar hum of her laptop, the soft glow of her lamp, the books stacked neatly on the desk. Everything ordinary, nothing to suggest she had been transported into another world. Nothing to prove John Jungkook had ever existed beyond the pages of a book. Vine sank back onto her bed, wrapping the blanket around her like armor. She tried to tell herself it had been a dream, a vivid, impossible dream. The kiss, the tension, the danger, it had to be her imagination, and yet her heart thudded with the chest, betraying her. Her fingers itched to touch her own lips. Her mind replayed his grey eyes, the heat of his hand against hers, the way he held her as if she mattered more than the world itself. For days she tried to bury it. She read the book again, hoping to find some rational explanation. Maybe it was just a fevered imagination, some dreamlike projection of the story she had been reading. Every time she saw the description of Janko, she shivered, her pulse sparking in that same unpredictable rhythm. Weeks passed, she told herself it didn't matter. The world she knew, her school, her friends, family was real, the one with Janko was gone. But the truth refused to stay buried. She found herself walking past bookstores just to glance at books on Wraith. She daydreamed about the valley, the forest, the tension of standing so close to a man she had been taught to hate and yet couldn't stop thinking about. Months slipped by. Vine immersed herself in her routine, tried to focus schoolwork, on friends, on anything to fill the void Jiluk had left behind. And yet every mundane day carried with it a faint shadow of longing, a memory too vivid to dismiss. And then one rainy afternoon everything changed. She was walking to her favorite cafe, drenched but ignoring it, thinking of nothing in particular except maybe a dream she couldn't quite forget when she froze across the street, standing in the rain as if untouched by the water as was a man, a stranger yet impossibly familiar. His black coat was soiled, hair dark and wild, and his grey eyes impossibly sharp, impossibly magnetic, loud up to hers. Vine's chest constricted. It can't be, she whispered, Chenkok. Her heart leapt, nearly skipping a beat. He was here in her world, real, not a dream. He crossed the street with the same confidence she remembered, each step deliberate, dangerous, and entirely magnetic, his lips curved into that faint smirk she knew all too well. Wine, he said, voice low, carrying the mix of command and intimacy that made her knees weak. I thought, she stammered, stepping back instinctively. I thought it was just a dream. He tilted his head, studying her like he had in breath. It wasn't, he said simply, and neither was it guess. Her cheeks flamed and she pressed a hand to her mouth. I don't understand. How? Why are you here? Jungkook's gaze softened just a fraction enough to make her pulse leap. I don't know how it's possible, he admitted, but I know one thing. I didn't let you go. Not then, not now. Her breath caught. The months of longing, confusion, and denial crashed down over her like a storm. She had tried to convince herself she hadn't felt anything, but seeing him alive, real, here all the walls she had built crumpled instantly. I missed you, she whispered. The words tasted like confession, like relief, like danger. Jungkook took a step closer, his presence overwhelming her senses. And I, he said, voice low, magnetic, missed you more than I thought possible. Every moment you were gone, I could feel you, waiting, thinking, planning, and I couldn't stay away. Vine's heart thudded. She wanted to reach out to throw herself into his arms, but she hesitated. The world around them was mundane, yet everything about him screamed danger. Yet in that instant she didn't care. She began faltering. I think I feel the same. Jungkook closed the distance, gently taking her face in his hands. Then stop fighting it, he murmured. Stop pretending you don't feel what you do. Her lips made hers in slow caress. Deliberate, electric, months of longing, confusion, and denial poured into that single moment. Vine felt the world shrink around them. The coffee, the street, the rain fading into relevance. All that mattered was him, the man who had been her enemy, her captor, her protector, her impossible desire. When they finally broke apart, breathless and trembling, Jungkook's forehead rested against his. You're mine, he said softly, no matter what world we are in. Vine's hand pressed against his chest, feeling the beat of his heart, feeling the undeniable truth of her own. And you're mine, she whispered, realization and surrender wrapped in the same breath. For the first time in months, for the first time since she had thumped into the pages of a world not her own, Vine felt all. The rain continued to fall, drumming softly around them. But it didn't matter because in that moment Jungkook was real, and so were her feelings. And she knew without any doubt that whatever worlds they belonged to, they found each other against time, against reason, against everything that tried to keep them apart.